Welcome to Hardwood Handicappers with Zach Cohen, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
I do a lot of college basketball stuff. I just don't write about it throughout the year. So, playing it myself, watching everything, I do a lot of NBA draft work for Real GM. So that is part of it, just watching a lot of college basketball to get to know the prospects. But yeah, I do have some plays that I do like. So I figured I'd just give them out because you guys like to take my plays, I think, or at least like to hear them. And, why not give them out for basketball when it is a different type of basketball, but still basketball nonetheless. So my 3 favorite plays for the first round of action, just my best bets so far that I've already put in. I will certainly add more. I like South Florida plus 5.5 versus Louisville, VCU plus 2.5 versus UNC, Akron plus 7.5 versus Texas Tech. The biggest plays in that group for me will be VCU and Akron, and I did sprinkle some money line with Akron. The reason that I took those 2 games, the last 2, are just injury related. Caleb Wilson out for North Carolina, JT Toppin out for Texas Tech. These are 2 teams that are very, very reliant on those 2 players, and they're facing opponents that might be smaller schools, but they're really, really strong when you look at their statistical profiles. I mean, if you look at Bart Torvik, a great resource for college basketball, in terms of just power rating and like overall efficiency, VCU is the 48th best team in the country. Akron's 71st. So these are teams that perform like high major teams, even though they come from mid-major conferences, and missing your best player against them in a tournament setting, that's rough. So I really do think that those are some really good spots. USF against Louisville, that's a different situation. I mean, Michael Brown Jr., fantastic player for the Cardinals, who's definitely going to be a top 10 draft pick in the 2026 NBA draft. Maybe not definitely, but sure looks like one right now. He's maybe not going to play in the NCAA tournament, so that's part of this, but more of that is just that USF has been tremendous all season long. This is a top 50 team in the country when looking at efficiency differential, and just a team that I really like their makeup. They're good, pretty much everywhere. They're good defensively. They can score. They have size. Everything about them screams kind of first round upset. So I grabbed some points against Louisville, which I think is, a very vulnerable, highly seeded team, and a team that, like I said, maybe no Brown. So might be a good number. If Brown doesn't play, I'd be really curious to see where this number goes, but wouldn't be surprised if it went down to 3.5, 4. So like to grabbing the plus 5.5. But those are my favorite round 1 plays for right now. In terms of futures, don't have too many at the moment, but I am going pretty heavy on Gonzaga. I have a parlay with Gonzaga and Purdue, both to reach the Sweet 16 at minus 122. A lot of that is matchup dependent. Gonzaga gets Kennesaw State in the first round, then the winner of BYU, Texas, or NC State, whoever, comes out of that first 4 matchup between Texas and NC State, probably face it, it does face BYU, and then, Gonzaga will face the winner of that. BYU is scary because AJ DeBonsa is just such a freaking good player. And, I talked about him being the number 1 pick in this draft. I think he will be, but just such an absolutely insane talent with so much size, so much skill, and just ferocious as a competitor. So scary guy to face in a one and done situation, but at the same time, no Richie Saunders tore his ACL. That's the second best player on that team, and an absolute sniper from deep. And 3 through 12, like, this team is not very good. This is pretty much all DeBonsa's show. Gonzaga is a very, very good defensive team. I would expect them to have a plan in place to slow him down. Handicap for Purdue doesn't need to go as crazy. This is a Big Ten champion and one of the most talented teams in the country. They'll face Queens in round 1. They should win that game. Winner of Miami and Missouri in round 2. Those are 2 teams that I think are very overrated. So really would be surprised that Gonzaga and Purdue are not in the final 16, and minus 122 to pair those 2 together seems very reasonable. But then a little bit further than that, took Gonzaga to make the Final Four at 14-1. Also sprinkled is generous. I did put a very small amount on this, 60-1 to win the NCAA tournament. And the reason that I like Gonzaga is I love Graham Ike, their center. I just think he's a dominant force in the paint, really good decision maker with the basketball. And then you're surrounding him with, a top 10 defense in college basketball. I think that there's a chance this team makes a run, especially with Braden Huff, maybe their second best player. Some would argue their best player. Another big man that's just dominant in the low post area. He comes back from his knee injury, ends up playing, the second weekend. All of a sudden, this is a team that's just massive inside, has perimeter talent, has athleticism, and then Mark Few, say what you want about him not having won a national title yet, but the teams are making deep runs at this point, at least. Like, they're getting there pretty consistently, and we've seen them lose some big games, but, that's what happens. Like, this is the type of thing that drives me crazy around this time of year in March. We kind of get on these coaches that have never won before, but if you just kind of look back, like, these coaches always kind of figure it out. I mean, Jay Wright was a guy that people said was a loser that, only went deep in tournaments or lost early with really good teams and couldn't win the big one. He ended up winning 2 titles. Tony Bennett was the biggest joke in college basketball after losing to UMBC with that 1-seeded Virginia team. He ended up getting his national title. It just takes patience because this is such a hard tournament to win, but you give yourself enough bites at the apple. That's really all you could ask for. And Gonzaga has a really good team this year, so I think that there will potentially be another bite at the apple. So I think Gonzaga goes deep in this tournament, has a chance to win it. And I will just say that overall, in terms of strategy, part of the reason that I went on Gonzaga in my brackets, and for your brackets, do what you want, but I will say it's really, really tough to win your brackets when you are playing very popular teams. And this year, there's a ton of them. I mean, Duke, Arizona, Michigan, Florida are going to be the most popular picks. Those are the 4 teams that I think clearly stand above the rest when you're looking at statistical profile. And they're also really big brands. They're popular. I think that everyone is going to have them. That pretty much instantly led to me crossing them out when it comes to brackets. I think that it's just too hard to win a pool with 1,000 people picking what everyone else is going to pick. So my next move is figure out who's the best of the rest. And I do think that the second and third tiers in college basketball this year are really good. It's going to take a lot and take a really good performance for those teams to knock off the top teams. But all of those teams at the top this year lost games. Maybe some of them were to each other, but I do think that these teams can lose, especially you look at Arizona and Florida. Those are 2 teams that really don't shoot the 3 very often or very well. That leaves you susceptible to an upset in the tournament. So I do think that there's going to be a chance for someone to knock them off. And I will just say, I think Houston is so close to that top tier that I really do have a hard time just not including them. When people ask me who the likely NCAA champion is, you're talking about a team the other 4 teams, top 10 in the country in both offensive and defensive rating, but Houston 14 in offense, 5th in defense. That's pretty damn close. So this team is right there in my opinion. But then also I'm really high on Gonzaga, number 10 in KenPom's rankings, really high on UConn, number 11 in KenPom's rankings. I think that those teams can win the NCAA tournament. So that's where I would go with it in terms of brackets, just to be different and, make it so that if one of those teams wins, you have a really good chance of winning. And for futures, it's not quite as straightforward. It's not the same in that regard. You're betting these teams to win. It doesn't matter what other people are doing, but you're not getting great prices on them because of how good they are. So might as well take a shot a little bit further down. And Gonzaga, I think, has a really reasonable draw, which is why I think the Final Four play is really good at 14-1. But then the sprinkle to win the title is just, once you're down there, once you're in the Final Four, if you get there, you have a shot, especially when you're as talented as the Bulldogs are. I think the Few's a great coach. I think that having, 2 really good big men in Huff and Ike is an advantage as well. So I just really like this team. I think that they're, worth a shot. There are other, darts worth throwing, but I'll leave that to some of my colleagues in the March Mania betting guide. So make sure you head over to VSiN.com, become a VSiN Pro, or get the guide a la carte. Either way, it's such a good product. I'm sure that you're going to love it if you like betting on basketball. And this is betting on basketball, even if it's not the NBA.